Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. This is the open session board meeting for the Franklin-McKinley School District. We're really excited to have the Kennedy Colored Color Guard here with us. I'm going to go ahead and start with item 3, general matters, beginning with item 3.01, the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read now. We acknowledge that the Franklin-McKinley School District and our schools are located in the Muwekma Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original people of the skies, land, and waters where we learn and work. The Muwekma Ohlone people are the stewards of these lands and of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and people who share it. May our daily lives and work, learning, teaching, and community engagement support the evolving vision of the Muwekma Ohlone for their community and these lands. We will now go to item 3.02, the flag salute.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand and remove your hats for the presentation of colors? Color Guard, advance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. Color Guard dismissed. Thank you. Please be seated. Hello, my name is Brandon Nguyen. I'm here with my dad and my friends.
Hello, good evening. I am here with my dad and my siblings today at this great event. Oh, Cesar Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name is Rajan Cayetano, and I'm here with my dad and my mom.
Hello and good evening. My name is Calvin Boyd, and I'm here with my mother.
Good evening. My name is Kaylin Nunez, and I'm here with my mom.
Hello, my name is Valeria Fierro, and I'm here with my mom and my sister.
Hello, my name is Serenity Loomis, and I am here with my mom and dad.
Good evening. My name is Josanna Vili, and I am here with my sister and my little nephew.
We get another round of applause for our Kennedy Color Guard. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone else who joined us well. So we are going to resume with the rest of the board meeting. You're welcome to join us, or you're welcome to enjoy the rest of your evening also at this time. Thank you. We will now go to item 3.03, approve, disapprove additions to the agenda. Hearing none, we will go to item 3.04, approve, disapprove order of the agenda. Hearing none, we will go to item 3.05, report of action taken in closed session.
Yes, thank you. The board unanimously approved the closed session minutes for September 28, 2021. The board also unanimously took action in closed session to dismiss a paraeducator. There are no other actions to report.
Thank you, Superintendent Cruz. We will now go to item 4, oral communications. Members of the public may address the board on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board or agenda items. Members of the public may also address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. No action can be taken on any agenda items at this time. Questions may be referred to the administration or put on a future agenda. We are at item 4.01, oral communications.
So we do have a speaker that has registered to speak on general comments. Jorge Arellano, if you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Cruz. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Jorge Arellano, and I'm the Senior Director of Community Engagement at Alpha Public Schools. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Alpha Cornerstone Academy. As you probably already know, there was a fire caused by arson at Alpha Cornerstone on Friday, October 15th. Our main office was affected badly and is now unusable. It was very scary and a very difficult time for our community, especially with all the challenges we're already dealing with due to COVID. However, it was also a time when we felt encouraged by the support we received from your district. We specifically want to say thank you to the Franklin-McKinley staff members who came to support us on the day of the fire and continue to work with us on repairs. Gabrielle, Vanessa, Carlos, Samur, Andrew, Jason, and the maintenance and custodial team members were here throughout the day and helped us to move materials out of our office and into storage in our temporary space in our staff room. We're very appreciative of their quick arrival on campus and rapid responses to our request. We're also very thankful to our neighbors at Kennedy for providing storage space for our materials as we rebuild. This was a moment where we all came together and put our students first, and we're very grateful for all that you've done for us. On behalf of our staff, students, and families, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any additional oral communications?
We did have a additional speaker that had registered to speak, but I do not see them on the Zoom platform. And Diana Zamora Marroquin had registered for item 705. She may log in later at the item, but I don't see her currently.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go on then, and if she joins by then, we'll do public comments at that time for that item. We will now go to item 5, consent items under 25,000. Members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. Board members, are there any items under consent items under 25,000 or over 25,000 that you would like to pull?
I just want a little bit more information on item 5.14, what that's about.
So we will go ahead and pull item 5.14, which will become action item 7.07. Any other items, members? Hearing none, I will accept a motion on consent items under 25,000.
Move to approve consent items 5.01 to 5.13.
Second.
With the exception of 5.1.
Yeah, 5.01 to
Thank you.
5.13.
All right, the motion has been made to approve items 5.01 through 5.03. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Clerk, read this. We will now go to item 6, consent items over 25,000. Board members, I'll accept a motion when you're ready.
Move to approve item 6.01 to 6.04.
Second.
Items 6.01 through 6.04 have been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 7, action items, starting with item 7.01, the personnel report.
Madam President, I move that the personnel report be approved as submitted and that A, the employment for the following employees be approved. Malia Washington, paraeducator at Santee, effective 10/25/21. Rochelle Bonifacio, van driver, effective 10/27/21. B, the resignation for the following employee be approved. Sue Teeth, library media aide at Silverdale, effective 11/5/21. And C, the release during probation for the following employee be approved. Mercedes Amarendris, custodian at Stonegate, effective 10/22/21.
Second.
The personnel report and addendum has been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 7.02, the September 28th, 2021 board meeting minutes. Board members, hopefully you've had a chance to review these minutes, and I will accept a motion when you are ready.
Madam President, I move to approve the September 28th, 2021 board meeting minutes. Second.
Right, the September 28th, 2021 board meeting minutes have been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 7.03, reporting on delegating authority to take the necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus. Superintendent Cruz.
Yes, thank you. So wanted to make sure that the community is aware that the board will be transitioning to full in-person board meetings starting our next board meeting in December. Public comment will only be available for the public via being in person or a written statement that would be read into the record. We will continue to provide enough space as the public comes to our board meetings, and all the safety measures that are required in school buildings will be adhered to, and that includes wearing a mask, socially distancing, and making hand sanitizer available at each of the entrances. If we have a need for, if there's a large enough audience where we need to do overflow, we will be able to do that as well. So I wanted to make sure that the public is aware of the transition for us. The board meetings will continue to be live streamed over our YouTube channel, but not, public will not be able to participate virtually effective our meeting in December. In addition to that, over the October break, it was our sort of a date of when we were going to reconsider some of the safety measures that we have been put in place to keep staff, students, and families safe. Many of the measures have stayed in place. We will continue to adhere to those safety measures. There were some that were adjusted, and I wanted to share that with the board and with our community. The one adjustment is that we will now start to consider field trips beginning in January when we return from the holiday break. That gives the staff an opportunity to start planning for those trips. Trips don't just get planned and implemented overnight. So we know that the staff will need time to plan those. They are to submit their request to take a field trip to Jason Van or myself so that we can review the safety measures and the risk involved in the field trip, and then make a decision in regards to authorizing that or making adjustments. So those are now open for staff to start planning. The other adjustment is that we will now give schools the opportunity to work with their staff on holding meetings, staff meetings in person, but continuing to offer the virtual option for that staff member that is still not ready to be in person staff meetings. That's a change. We were not allowing in-person meetings. All of them were supposed to be held virtual. So that is a shift. And this comes as a request of many of our staff members at the schools that are finding it difficult to engage in some of the PD in meetings virtually. And so they wanted to have that option. So I instructed the principals to work with their staff and making sure that they're using the spaces that allow for them to sort of spread out. They continue to implement the safety measures of mask and all those things, but also give the option of the virtual opportunity for those that are still not ready. Also, our teacher parent conferences also can take place in person. They're after school, they're one-on-one. And again, that is going to be up to the teacher and the parents to sort of agree to whether they want to do it in person or virtually. So those are the major changes we've made, adjustments we've made to the safety protocols that we have. And we will continue to monitor and start to either pull back or implement measures as we see the conditions either improve or change out in the community. So we continue to publish daily the COVID positive cases. So if you have not taken a look at, it is linked on our website, and that takes you to a spreadsheet that is updated daily with any positive case that we have been notified of. I will take any questions from the board at this time.
Clerk Rodriguez.
Have we resumed any of the state testing? And how is that working?
We have. We actually implemented our LPAC testing for our EL students at the beginning of the year. And so we're since it's in person, it's a much easier administration of all these assessments. And we are projected to implement the state testing in the spring as well.
Board members, any other questions? Board member Sanchez?
I just want to ask Superintendent in terms of we take a look at the results from the past, say, well, since school started. How are we doing up to this point? I mean, are we really improving? Really? I mean, it seems like all California and San Jose County are improving. Are we improving?
It's hard to gauge because there's nothing for us to benchmark ourselves, right? Because September was our first full month of tracking. August was, just a couple of weeks. So at the end of October, we'll be able to benchmark September to October. I can tell you that countywide, there has been a reduction in positive cases and in deaths. However, our zip codes continue to be the dark shade because they're concentrated in our community. So it's hard to gauge the impact in our community compared to that of the entire county, because there is a reduction in the county.
Right.
But we still are getting a lot of positive cases. I won't say a lot. We are still getting positive cases at our schools from students and staff. Almost on a daily basis, there's at least one student. There's some delays in terms of the test. So on a day, there might be 0, but on the next day, there may be 2 or 3. So it's not something that that's sort of an outbreak at a particular school or a classroom, and that's a good thing. A lot of the cases are actually from the outside. They're not actually, as far as we can tell, happening in our schools. But that still continues to be a concern of ours, especially because our students still don't have access to the vaccine. That may change in the next week, and that may completely change everything. But it's hard for us to gauge that in our community simply because we continue to have the highest rates, even though the county is going down.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Clerk Rodriguez?
Have we had any parent pushback on the mask mandate? I don't know.
No, we've had to work with some staff, some parents in terms of helping them understand what it is and how this protects their children as well as others. And I'm not aware of anybody that refuses to wear them. And the students are very compliant. To be honest with you, every time I go to the schools, they're wearing them. When they're outside, they may take a little break as they move away from the kids and they put it back on. Even when they're playing basketball and those kinds of things, they're wearing them. So the students are actually doing very well and wearing and following the protocol. Even though it's uncomfortable to wear it all day, they're doing a good job.
Yeah, and it's probably too early, but I think we're heading towards the ability to vaccinate 5 to 11-year-olds. So I guess you're going to be letting us know when that happens.
Right, we're waiting. Obviously, it's now at the FDA level. We're anticipating from everything that we're looking at that may be imminent, and that as early as November 1st, that we may have doses that are shipped and ready for administering to children, 5 through 11-year-olds. We know that the county has already reached out to our district as one of the districts that may be prioritized in providing vaccination centers in our backyard to help with that. So as that information becomes available, obviously the board and our community will be well informed of that so that we can get as many of our students vaccinated as quickly as we can.
Board Member Martinez.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. First, you had mentioned that there might be a possibility that we might be able to reopen field trips starting in 2022. What is the thought process, or is it yet to be determined about volunteers, people who we don't have as much authority over in terms of whether or not they're vaccinated or whether or not they're going to be needing to follow a protocol?
Thank you for that question. I foresee us being able to look at opening that up, in the timeframe of January. And the reason I say that is that if we see that the majority or a great number of our students get vaccinated, then there's less risk, right? And we would implement the protocols of not just asking them to be fingerprinted like we normally do, but also proving that they have been fully vaccinated. I will not, at this point, I would not feel comfortable allowing volunteers that are unvaccinated to volunteer. But we would be able to open up for those that are fully vaccinated, in the timeframe of sort of January, depending on how the case rates are, and then what the percent of our students that are going to be vaccinated by then. So sort of the January timeframe is where I think it might change our ability to be a lot more open in our schools.
Thank you. My second question involves the testing that I know that last time it's been a while since our last board meeting. You had mentioned that there's now an opportunity for students to be tested here at the district office. How is that going?
I see, every day I see a number of families coming in and testing, especially in the morning as we get confirmation of a positive case, and then they get, identified as close contact. I can't say that they're busy all day, but every day there's a stream of students and staff that are coming, knowing that every morning from 8:30 to 12 o'clock, they're here. And so I now also got into the habit of just doing it weekly because it's here. And so I know some staff members are doing the same.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, Superintendent Cruz, for those updates. We will now go to item 7.04, the candidate for Santa Clara County Committee.
Yes, thank you. So I did a lot more research simply because this caught me off guard, because it normally doesn't come to us to appoint a board member, because that board member is appointed at our reorganization meeting. At that time, board member Rosado was identified as the board member that simply signs the ballot. That's really the task of this board member, to sign the ballot of the voting of the board. For the candidates that are put themselves up, which you could have all done, but the point of putting it on the agenda was to publish it, that this is an opportunity for the community to put their name into being a candidate to be elected to this position. So because member Rosado no longer is on the board, is why we need somebody from the board to be identified as that member that signs the ballot in November, when you will have an opportunity to vote on the candidates for representing District 1, which is what Franklin-McKinley belongs to. So sorry for the confusion last time. It just came at a different time than it normally comes, and so I thought it was a different position. So does that make sense? I know that they were pointing at the new board member.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that this would be just something that we sign, and we're actually appointing someone else to
Yes.
sit there. I'm okay with that, if that's the direction of the board.
Am I hearing that you're willing to still take that on board? Member
Absolutely. It
Martinez?
actually is less intense than what we had discussed the last time. So my concerns are not the same today.
Do both.
Did you have a comment on this item, Vice President Trum? All right, so I think.
I know that you guys voted on last time. Maybe it's better if since it's agendized as an action item, to vote on it again, so that it's.
So do we have to renominate?
Yes.
And I nominate Board Member Martinez as a representative on this committee.
Second.
Right, Board Member Martinez has been nominated as the representative.
Yes.
And that motion has also been seconded. Board Member Martinez is accepting of the nomination. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Board Member Martinez, supporting our district with that. Right, we will now go to item 7.05, Resolution 2021-37, declaring the Franklin-McKinley School District a defender for reproductive healthcare access and freedom. Do you believe there was a public comment?
I will check
Can we
again.
see if that individual is here? Otherwise. So we'll go ahead and start with public comments.
So Deanna, you are able to make your public comment at this time?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. I would like to start by thanking the board president for bringing this critical issue in front of the board. California remains a model for providing and protecting access to reproductive health care, and seeing the board vote on possibly being a champion and a defender of health equity and reproductive freedom for everyone is really quite inspiring. So again, I just want to start with a thank you. As other states and communities mobilize against reproductive health care, our region has really shown it's continued to build a comprehensive system of support for people seeking sexual and reproductive care, supporting both the patients and also the medical professionals who care for them. Whether we're talking about choosing a provider, seeking preventative care, or improving affordability of services. Moreover, reproductive health care is intertwined with many issues of social justice, such as economic, gender, and racial equity. And a strong support system for reproductive freedom and healthcare ensures that everyone that you represent, regardless of their background, socioeconomic status, ability, or orientation, has access to care they need when they need it. I really believe that every person has a right to comprehensive evidence-based information. And so defending access to care is a really strong step towards reaching that goal. So I would just like to urge the board to vote in support of the resolution, shine as a model, and come together to state your commitment to support actions that increase information, freedom, and access to reproductive health care for the people that you represent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deanna. Are there any other public comments? So you might be wondering how reproductive health care and freedom impacts our school district. And I bring this resolution forward as an educator, as a mom, as a teacher who has connected families with healthcare resources, as someone who supported students during their pregnancies in middle school. And tonight, I'm also speaking as a person who had an abortion when our first baby, Jenna Berta, died unexpectedly last year. Access to prompt reproductive health care saved my life. And I was fortunate to have had the knowledge, support, access, and freedom to make an informed decision. The reality is, individuals across our nation, in Texas and in other states, at this moment right now, do not have access to these life-altering rights. An abortion is a medical term that refers to the termination of a pregnancy after, accompanied by, or closely followed by the death of the embryo or fetus. And this month is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And now you know that I am 1 in 4 women who will experience a pregnancy loss in their lifetime. The reality is, individuals all around you are familiar with this journey, whether you know about it or not. We also know that this is an issue of equity. Restrictions on reproductive rights disproportionately impact women of color and low-income women. In fact, in 1976, the Hyde Amendment passed by the United States Congress severely restricted public funding for abortion. And at the time, Latina college student Rosie Jimenez became the first known woman to die from a back alley abortion after the passage of the Hyde Amendment because she could not afford abortion from a licensed healthcare provider. Reproductive healthcare is also so much more than just abortion access. Right here in Santa Clara County, it includes all age and all gender health exams, all gender cancer screenings, birth control, infertility testing and referrals, emergency contraception, pregnancy testing and options counseling, treatment and vaccines, HIV testing, and so much more. So this resolution makes the declaration that our district will champion and defend health equity and reproductive freedom for all, so that anyone may have access to the reproductive health care services they need when they need them. Further, that our district calls upon the United States Congress to protect reproductive freedom nationwide by enacting legislation to protect access to abortion and other reproductive care without government interference. And finally, that the Franklin-McKinley School District is committed to supporting actions within our district to increase reproductive healthcare access, information, and freedom for our students, staff, and district community. And on that note, I would like to share that I'm also working on proposing specific board policy changes. I'll continue to work with Superintendent Cruz, Cabinet, and Legal Counsel for board's consideration in the near future. I want to thank you all for listening and my board colleagues for your consideration of this resolution. And I'll open it up to any questions or comments from other board members. Clerk Rodriguez.
Yeah, this is absolutely, I'm going to support this. I just find it very disturbing that we have at a national level, a male-dominated government that wants to make a decision for another person's freedom to choose what regarding reproductive health care. And it just sickens me that that's even an issue still today, when I recall it being an issue back in the 70s when I was a teenager in high school. So this is absolutely something we should definitely vocalize our support of. And I thank you, Board President, for bringing this forward and for the public comment that was made, because it absolutely aligns with my values and my belief.
Thank you, Clerk Rodriguez.
I did call the superintendent and ask him to give me a little bit more information in terms of this particular agenda item being brought forward, because we've never had such an item brought forward until today. In terms of it, something that we could consider as a school board, whether it was within our domain of consideration, since basically we deal with the educational issues and so on before us. And that's why I wanted clarity on this issue. So I don't know if the superintendent wants to add anything to the comments he made to me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We did consult with legal counsel in regards to the jurisdiction that the district and the board has in regards to this particular resolution. Legal counsel did offer some language that he believed was necessary for it to be within the jurisdiction of the board, and we've made those adjustments to the resolution. And so it's from legal counsel that we believe that this is in line with the jurisdiction and the responsibility that the board has in regards to our charge of providing information education in regards to reproductive health care to our students that is in ed code. So it is well in line with the responsibilities that you all have.
And I just want to say that I kind of grapple with this issue, being a Roman Catholic. And of course, all of you know what the Roman Catholic position is regarding this this whole area. And that's why I just wanted to be real clear. I'm not opposed to this, but I won't be voting for it, but I won't be voting against it. And so that will be my position. And I hope all of you respect my position, my religion, and thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? Clerk Rodriguez?
Well, I am also Catholic, and I was raised Catholic, and I do know the position of the church. My faith in God should not be pushed on anyone else's freedom to choose on reproductive health care and having that access and freedom. My faith in God is very personal, and I know that if it was not the right thing to do, I wouldn't vote for it, but this is not even in consideration because I fully support this.
Any other questions or comments? I would also just like to reemphasize that this resolution is, if you go through every whereas clause and every aspect of it, it really is describing comprehensively. And I mean, I know I listed several examples of just here locally in Santa Clara County, what this looks like. to be provided this access to healthcare. So I wanted to emphasize again that reproductive healthcare is healthcare, and that expands beyond just abortion, which again is a medical term and refers to, as I described the definition earlier, which in my case, I won't get too much into my personal medical history, but the baby had already died, and it was a medical procedure that I needed to save my life. But I will continue to respect everyone's decision and everyone's right to their opinion and beliefs. There are no other comments. I will make the motion that we approve Resolution 2021-37, declaring the Franklin-McKinley School District a defender of for reproductive health care access and freedom.
Second, or either one.
Go ahead and accept the second from Vice President Tran. Right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Sorry, abstain.
Okay, so we have 4 ayes and 1 abstention, so that motion passes. Thank you. We will now go to item 7.06, the SR3 Expenditure Plan. Assistant Superintendent.
Hey, good evening, President Afzal Berta, members of the board, Superintendent Cruz. This evening, I will be bringing Franklin-McKinley School District's SR3 Expenditure Plan. SR3 stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. This is the 3rd allocation out of 3 of COVID-19 relief funds that we have received in response to school closure. I'm going to go over the definition or the requirement or criteria of the ESSER plan and how it relates and intertwines with other plans the board has reviewed and approved throughout the 2020 and 2021 school year, and now I'm coming into 21-22. I'm trying to figure out how to use the. Okay. So I first wanted to start like just quickly going over our LCAP goals. So these are the 3 LCAP goals that were approved in June by all of you. We're entering the first of a 3-year LCAP goal plan. And so I just wanted to frame my presentation and our conversation this evening around these goals as everything that we decide in the school district is really centered around our LCAP goals, our action items and expenditures that have been approved up to this point. So I'm not going to read through the goals, you guys know them, but really overarching goal number 1, achievement for all, goal number 2, positive school environment and school culture, and then finally 3, family and community engagement. When we think about developing our goals and developing plans or monies that we receive, whether it's state money or federal monies, we really want to think about it under the umbrella of the LCAP that really drives all our decision making. And I just name a few plans that we had opportunities to review, develop, and then also receive some funding last school year. The first was the LCP, the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. We saw this in December of 2020 last year. It was a response to the end of LCAP and really needed to address school closures and distance learning. So there was a comprehensive template that you all reviewed and approved with stakeholder feedback. There weren't specific funds attached to that, but it was really needed in order to address our current state of school closures at that point in time. Some of the decisions and action items attached to that plan still carry over into this year, most specifically the safe in-person return for our students. And you will actually see that referenced in our SR3 expenditure document. I also want to mention the ELO, the Extended Learning Opportunity Grant that you had an opportunity to review last year. There were monies attached to this. It was one-time funding. And again, it was in response to loss of instruction for our students due to school closures. And it had specific criteria around recommendations of how we were to allocate our funds to align to our LCAP, keep in consideration the LCP. So you can see that they're continuing to be connected. And then finally, this evening, I'm bringing forth the expenditure template for the SR3. We actually have a longer allocation of the funding. And then what's really nice about that is that it allows us to, if we see strategies or actions that are working for our students that are addressed in our LCAP, in our ELO, in our LCP, it allows us to have funding to be able to extend those strategies and actions beyond this school year. So basically the heart of this template or this expenditure plan is really to address the student academic, social, and emotional and mental health needs, as well as any opportunity gaps that occurred as a result of COVID-19 and the pandemic. And part of the criteria that's referenced in this template from the CDE is that we can also use stakeholder feedback that we gathered last year in developing our LCAP as well as our ELO grant. But I also want to mention that we had an opportunity to collect some stakeholder feedback last week, from our DLAC committees, our DEEP committee, as well as our DAC committee. So we wanted to make sure that we were still, our stakeholder feedback was still current and aligned to what we had gathered in the spring, now that schools are open. Just quickly, I'm not going to go over this. These are just, you have seen this document before, but it's the executive summary of the criteria for the ELO grant. All of these slides actually link directly back to the full grant, if that's something that you wanted to refresh your memory on, and it's available on our school website as well. I'm going to quickly go through these slides because it really does align with our past templates that we've seen over the past year and a half. But one significant criteria of the SR3 is that of the funding that we receive, 20% of the fund has to go to expenditures that are related to addressing the academic impact and loss of instructional time. And it really needs to be research-based or evidence-based intervention. And so that was really the kind of the most strict criteria of the template itself, but overall, it does give us a lot of flexibility to be able to address the needs of our students. So again, 20% has to address the learning loss of our students. So that could include high quality assessments, evidence-based activities, assisting our families if we are returning to distance learning, or even our families that are in independent study at this point in time due to unable to come back to school, and then just tracking attendance and improving our student engagement as we return to school. The remaining 80% of the funds can be used for a wide variety of needs for our schools. It can be related to ensuring that we have safe return to school. So that could be cleaning our facility, sanitation, technology to make sure that we have online access for our students, any repairs that we need to do, PPE, any kind of protocols, mental health services, or planning for summer learning. So this is the executive summary of action items we're bringing forward this evening for the SR3 and the dollar expenditures that are aligned to that. All of these action items have full description in the plan itself, and the plan itself is also linked in the board documents this evening. So you'll see the 3 different categories. I don't know if you can see what this. Let me just move that a little bit. Okay, so of the 3 categories, the first is strategies for continuous and safe in-person learning. So that's really everything related to facility, PPE, custodial support, contact tracing. So those are kind of the big action items and dollars that are allocated to that. The second section is the 20%, so addressing the impact of lost instructional time. And so action items attached to that. Oh, and then I did want to reference that you'll see on the left on the plan alignment, it references plan that you'll also see the same action item. So you'll see it in the LCP, ELO, the LCAP. So you'll notice that all our action items that are identified are not new. They're all action items that are previously approved or action items that we're currently using or have identified as needing to continue to fund. So under 20% extended learning time, learning supports and addressing our social emotional needs, and that's through our currently through our social workers. And then and finally, any remaining funds that we want to utilize towards the criteria that has been outlined. So that'll include our student support specialists, expansion of our choral program after school, class size reduction, support staff, expanding our student enrichment opportunities. Let me move this again. And technology and professional development first. I know that's that.
If I can, one of the reasons you see the transition from ELO to ESSER is, if you remember, one of the things, especially around staffing, that we talked about is how do we make sure that the staffing is not a one year, right? So that we can recruit. And so that's why we were able to braid ELO, ESSER2 and ESSER3 funds so as to make them stretch them out to at least a 3-year plan. And so in some cases, for the social workers or support specialists that we didn't end up being able to hire, we started, the year 1 funding with ELO, and then with the knowledge that we were going to then transition them into ESSER2 and ESSER3 funds. So that's the alignment that you're seeing in how sort of the funds were allocated.
Another piece of the template also requires us to address how we're monitoring or collecting data and the effectiveness of the strategies that we have identified. So there's also, you'll see in the template, a section that's labeled ensuring interventions are addressing our student needs. And so we have kind of 3 overarching categories that we're going to continue to monitor. One is social emotional supports for our students. We have a lot of funding that has been allocated to the mental health of our students and well-being, as well as our social workers at our schools. And we want to make sure that we're appropriately responding to the needs of our students. So we will be utilizing EduClimber, which is a new addition to our Illuminate package. So that will really follow our MTSS model and allow us to collect multiple data points on our students to ensure that we're intervening and supporting as necessary. The next area is just overall intervention supports. And that's right now, some of the programs we've identified, well, that'll be listed on the next one is Lexi and Raz Kids, but we also have Star Renaissance, which is our benchmark assessment tool for us to be able to look at ELA and mathematics and how students are responding to intervention or core instruction. And then we can look at specifically students that are receiving additional intervention to support to see if they're responding to the intervention. And then tutoring and support programs. And that's just, again, around how do we continue to provide individualized, differentiated support for our students in order to be responsive to loss of instruction and needing to accelerate them and support their learning now and then moving forward. And again, we'll be using within Lexia and Raz Kids, there's also assessment tools that we can use to monitor students' growth and see if those programs truly are responding to our students' needs. And then, oops, I think I mentioned that we brought the plan for feedback to 3 of our committees, again, to just check and make sure that we are still being responsive to our community and our student needs, and making sure that's reflected in our actions. And then I know it's a lot of information, but if you have questions.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Black. Vice President Turan.
Congratulations, Amy, on your first presentation of many to the Board of Education. That was a pretty informative presentation. I do have a few questions to ask.
Sure.
And the first one being SR3 funds. Is there a time limit of when we need to spend this money?
We have to spend it by 2023, I believe, is the end. Is that correct, Jason? Is the money guy?
I saw 2024.
Was that
That was
right?
3 years from when we got the grant. 2024, great. And so I see 2.8 million of it is going to be allocated to hiring a student support specialist for K-6, K-8 sites, along with the 1.4 or 1.3 from the ELO grant. So the 3 years funded for this position is it comes out to 4.3 million or something like that. How much staff are we hiring?
So it is actually not a position that we were able to fill. We posted and there's just no viable candidates that applied. And so we did not end up filling that position.
Okay.
It was going to be a total of 16, one per school that would provide intervention during the day and into the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done at this point is we've reallocated about $700,000 for this year to each of the schools to pay teachers to provide intervention before school or after school as a result of not being able to fill these positions.
Do we have to report that change to the?
We will once we have to report the actual expenditures. This was sort of the initial plan when we submitted to the board in June. And now, when that didn't happen, we will have to, when we submit our expenditure reports, we will have to make that change in how the funding was spent. It's still going to be spent for intervention. It's just going to be on an hourly basis from the teachers providing that before or after school.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the logistics of how we're going to spend the SR3 funds and the flexibility of it actually. So there's no deadline for us to change the pockets of where we spend the money, right? So we could do that up until the very last deadline of the grant.
Yeah, I would say the only restriction, as Amy indicated, is that 20%. Other than that, it's very flexible.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we can't think about it in the spring, whether we will float that position once again, because we had a plan which was 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing to prevent us from considering that in the spring when we're thinking about the next school year.
Right.
But that's something that we will look at and see if that's still a need, and we'll bring back a recommendation to the board.
Because I'm thinking of the possibility, because we can have a 3-year plan, but life hits and you have to change that. So just want to see where we can, if we do have funds that are not being used, it could be allocated elsewhere and somewhere, along with the flexibility of that. I'm sorry, I heard you said 16 positions that you were hiring for the student support specialists. We didn't fill any of them at all, or?
We had one internal candidate and that was it. And so it didn't make any sense to hire the one and then decide where to go. And, it just was not feasible. And so we decided to not move on that. If we would have taken them out of the classroom, then we would have had another problem, which is not having classroom teachers to serve our students during the day. So it really was a lack of manpower and lack of interest. And so we just could not fill them at this time.
I mean, it's a leap of faith too. It's a new position, right?
What was that?
Is it a new position in our school district?
It was a brand new position, right? It's a teacher on special assignment. So we've had teachers on special assignment, but this particular one was specifically for intervention with the idea that they were going to start a little bit later than the school day so that they could be there in the after school time. And again, we only had one internal candidate that let us know that she was interested, and that was it.
Okay, so thank you for that. Hopefully next year planning for that would go well, and we can at least have 2 years of student support specialists. Well, I think that's about it. What I remember. Thank you so much, Amy, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Clerk Rodriguez.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for the presentation. It was very clear. So it was easy to look at all the data and look at all the plans. Just a quick question. I'm not sure if you or maybe Jason might be able to answer this. What if we don't use the money? What happens to it? Does it go back to, does it go? State?
But that won't be a problem, right?
We won't use it, right?
Try not to say that.
No, don't send it back.
Okay, well, I really appreciate what Tan was mentioning about the support specialists. Now, have we already started posting the positions and we only had one person, or I didn't need some clarity on that.
So we posted back in the spring. And then throughout the summer, we left it open. And
all 16?
Yeah, the position it says 16 positions. There's one posting that
And
says
we only
we
had
need-
one person?
We only had one person.
Wow.
Is this normal for all school districts that are experiencing this?
I would say this year it might have been normal simply because of just the shortage. You got to also understand that by reducing the class size, we actually added at least 14 additional teaching spots that we had to fill. And that, again, that was a decision that we made in regards to wanting the 4 through 6 classes to be at a lower class size. But that took teachers, into those rooms. But I would say it is common right now because of just the manpower, the shortage of manpower across the county and certainly across the state. And then also, there's some staff that are veteran staff that may not want to leave their assignment, their school, if it's not going to be a long-term. And even 3 years, we think that it's a long-term, but for some staff, that's a risk that they don't want to take in losing their spot at the school that they've had for a while. Because there's no guarantees that if there was no funding to keep going after the 3rd year, that they could go back to that school in that assignment.
And that was my other question was after the funds run out, then those positions are gone.
Well, that's a decision that administration and we would make a recommendation to the board, because if we had the data that said this was effective and that this is something that we want to keep, then we would have to make decisions about what else we would not fund. So there's nothing to say that it's automatic that we would end these positions or these programs at the end of the 3rd year, or decisions we would have to make if funding was not available, whether it's through additional funds from the state or federal government or from our general fund.
Okay, so I mean, that's kind of scary because that's really a disservice to our students. I mean, sure, we're going to lose the professional, the support, but the bottom line is it's going to hurt our students. So I'm trying to think of, we have a good plan. We're using the grant, the money. I'd just like to see if there's a way that we could at least keep some portion of it going after the 3 years. I don't know, maybe we're panicking too soon, but I'd like to keep that in mind.
No, thank you for that, Board Member Rodriguez. We would love to be able to show the impact of these efforts and then come to you and say, we have the funding to continue from this, pot of money that may be, new money, or say, look, we need to prioritize this, and then it's something else we'll have to give. So I am completely understanding what you're saying, and that's our hope that this is something that is long-term, because a lot of the things that we have in here are responding to COVID, but they're not new needs, right? We've had a need for social emotional. We have had a need to accelerate students, right? This just got amplified and funding came to help us, but it's not a new need. And so we'll have to, come back to the board and say, this is what we want to keep and this is how we intend to pay for it.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Rudy, but we're gonna miss 1 year of data from this new program that we have, right? I mean, if we had it started successfully with 3 years, then it would give the board much more confidence that this is an effective program. Now we're only at 2 years left of funding for this. So if the next year we don't get this filled out with the hopeful optimistic 16 positions filled, then that's another year lost. So
well, I agree that, we wouldn't have a trajectory of 3 years, but even on a yearly basis, we can track impact through what, Amy was saying in terms of our ability to do pre and post and our regular assessments. So there are opportunities for us to gather enough data to make a decision about any of these. Granted, we would have loved to be able to have that level of workforce in our schools right now helping, but it was just not possible. So we can still collect the data necessary if this comes, if we end up making a decision to fill this. We may make a decision in the spring that is different based on where we are at that point. So there's nothing to set in stone for us to say, and we will fill these for 22, 23. That's something that we will consider, Amy and her team will consider in regards to what are the needs out there and how do we meet those needs, if not in this way, in another way, using these funds.
right, because to me, from what I'm hearing about this position, it seems like the guarantee of longevity is not there. So any teacher that's internal or even external for that fact, that wants to apply to this position, it doesn't seem something like a smart career choice, just based on in the case that the board doesn't agree with the 2-year data that, student performance has improved or anything like that. And we end up having an excess of 16 teachers on special assignment. I'm not so sure about the plan. So is there something that we can read up on about the student support specialist plan on what their roles are, their job description, what they're expected to do, so I can feel a little bit more comfortable that this is something that.
I mean, we certainly can bring that to the board if that's the direction in the spring that we decide to actually fill. I mean, at this point, we may not go down that path and we may choose a different path.
Okay.
If we do that, yes, we will present to the board how we plan to implement and provide the services and how we're going to track the impact as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, Don, I'm so glad you brought all that up. But I also know that there's a positive side to this. That we have you, Amy, and you bring a lot of talent with you, and I have a lot of faith that you're going to be able to make all this work. So, because of your experience, so we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here. So, and having the superintendent there to support you as well, I think that we might be able to make it work. We might be a little bit behind now, but I think we might be able to catch up.
Any other comments, board members? Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Amy. Very, very good report that you gave us today.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated. Thank you for being here with us.
Good to be here.
I did have a couple of follow-ups. I know I had asked some questions before the board meeting and most of them were answered. But just in terms of the updates on, I know you, there's a slide on the data points. When would the board or the public be updated on how the plan's going?
Are you referring to specific items or are you saying like?
I guess I just mean in
history?
general, you know, in terms of this plan and how the funds are allocated and then how we're tracking the data. Whatever
So
general
I know that that's something that we're looking forward just initially, probably in the next board meeting, to just bring our current data points with to you, because I mean, it was very difficult to collect student data with school closure. It felt very unreliable and kind of unstable in terms of really accurately understanding where students are when they are, you know, in distance learning. So we are closing up or just closed up our trimester 1 benchmark data. So that is data that we want to share with you to just show kind of like, here's where we are at this point in time. We do have some trend data that we can look at from the years past, just to kind of like frame where we'd like to see our students go this year and just establish some kind of, you know, goals for us by the spring. I think that's really important for us to continually to show local data to the public and to board members as well. So you can see very transparent where we are, how we're collecting the data. I mean, it really is up to you how often you want us to come. We're happy to give you an update. Sometimes it's hard to go over all the data at one time at a board presentation. So we could also, you know, break it apart. Like, what does it look like for the social emotional data that we're collecting or survey information through EduClimber? What does it look like through our, you know, STAR Renaissance data that we're collecting, and what's our anticipated trajectory? I know, I think you probably be really interested to see where we are in our Alexia, right? That was a significant funding that was allocated. So we can give you some data points as well throughout the year. This is data that we'll regularly review also through our DAC committee. So any time that I bring data to DAC, I can also make sure to bring it to the board so that you can be most current on where we are in this point in time. I mean, it is going to be a little bit interesting year as we are kind of creating a new baseline on our students. But so far, when we looked at the data, it's not significantly different than what we've seen in the past. There are a couple little gaps in our grade levels, especially with our littles, right? So looking at second grade data or third grade data, because they haven't been in school for those foundational skills. So there's definitely already certain grade levels that we're taking a look at, but I'm happy to bring that information to the board at any point in time.
Great, thank you. And the other question I had was on, I know we had a lot of discussion about the student support specialists, but I guess my question is, in the meantime, the funds are being kind of redirected for teachers or other staff to provide extended, I guess, intervention before and after school. Is there any way that, you know, that we're being mindful of how we can make sure that support is equitable, right? Because is it on a voluntary basis in terms of the teachers, or how is that working?
Yeah, and unfortunately it is, right? Because it's beyond their contract. So it would be teachers that are interested in, you know, taking on extra services or extra job related duties beyond their contract. I know that we've also tried to look at possibly tagging some of our retired teachers, and we've explored that, and we'll continue to explore that as possibility of our retired teachers to come and do support, because they could actually do some support during the school day as well. They have a little bit more flexibility. And yeah, unfortunately, just due to lack of people available. I'm also optimistic. I think it's a little bit rose-colored glasses, but hoping that, I know some limitation of people that I've talked to that have worked in education is just they're not comfortable because of, you know, if students are not vaccinated, right? So I think also when we start to look at a higher vaccination rate across schools, we may also see an influx of possibly people feeling more comfortable about coming and working with students. So I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but I just know, speaking with some of people I've known that work in education, they're hesitant. So yeah, it's kind of an uncertain time in terms of being able to.
And we are aware of that. And so I've talked to the principals that we will be monitoring if there are significant gaps at a particular school where there's either no teacher volunteering to do so, or, maybe just one, that then we will look at funding outside organizations that may be able to come in and provide that level of support, academic support, to ensure that there's not a particular site where there's no intervention and no support being provided. So we're hoping that there's enough at each of the schools, but if not, then we will, try and engage with outside organizations that can fill the gap.
I think that's really important because, I have full confidence that our teachers are, the most equipped to be providing those interventions and the supports to our students. And at the same time, I know our teachers and staff are really stretched thin right now. It's a difficult year to be asking for, taking on that additional task. And so I just want to make sure that we're being mindful, given that this is a significant chunk of, funds, that we're really making sure that all students have access to that level of support if they need it. Not if we do need to look at additional, layers of support to make that happen equitably across our school sites, or where the need is greatest, then we look at that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then the last question I had, I'll make it quick, is Coral at capacity right now, or are we meeting the demands for Coral based on our?
We are at capacity from a workforce and from a need. There are a couple of sites that still, I believe, have a few students on the wait list, but we did increase, and we are continuing to find dollars to fund it. But there's a workforce challenge, as we all know. And one of the things that I talked to Catholic Charities is there a need for them to start increasing their pay, which inversely affects the fund, the available funds that the state provides for reimbursement is low. But that doesn't mean that we can't use some of these funds or other funds, grant funds, to bridge the gap, because they're losing the staff to higher paying positions within the community. So in talking to them, they lost a couple of staff members because obviously Starbucks, McDonald's are paying more than $15, and I think it's $15.10 that currently Cassie's, who are part of our Clara program, get paid. And so to be competitive, they're going to have to think about increasing their pay, which then from a state reimbursement, it may be problematic, although the state is increasing funding for it. And Jason, remind me, next year, we're supposed to be able to provide to all students that want to, we have to provide extended day, is that correct? So as part of this, for next year, we have to build up our capacity to offer to any family that wants the 9-hour instructional day to make it happen. So there may be a where we have to put in our own LCAP, supplemental concentration, and our general fund to make this possible.
It's a challenge, but also exciting in terms of what that'll be able to offer our families and community, and hopefully help us, continue to attract and retain our students as well. Absolutely. Thank you so much for the presentation and answering the questions. Are there any other comments? This is an item that we need to approve, correct? Okay. So board members will accept a motion on the SR3 Expenditure Plan.
Move to approve SR3 Expenditure Plan.
Second.
Item 7.06, the SR3 Expenditure Plan has been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. We will now go to item, Well, we're going back to item 5.14, which is now item 7.07. Board Member Sanchez, you had pulled this item.
Yes, I just wanted to get some information from the superintendent regarding this item, what it's about and what it will do for the adult school.
Yeah, so this is a science / nutrition / getting to know Mother Nature, nature. So they bring an actual cow to the campus and teach them about, how cows make milk, the benefits of drinking milk, having a nutritious, balanced meals. So it is a no charge to DAW, and they bring all the materials. They provide materials ahead of time for the teachers to be able to front load. And then they actually culminate with assembly when they bring a van with a big old cow in it. So that's the basic information that I can provide at this point.
Well, what's interesting is where I grew up in Central Valley, Modesto. Most of the students already knew that. We grew up near farms.
I bet you that for some students, it will be the first time that they actually are in front of an actual cow.
Oh, yeah. Are they? I don't see where it said they're going to teach them. They're going to teach them how to milk the cows? I doubt it.
I think they do, to be honest with you.
That is it's awesome, you guys. Yeah. If you haven't, it's a great experience as a child.
Yeah, that's why they bring it out. And I think that they actually show how the milk comes out.
But if taste is not good because it's kind of sourish, but warm.
Yeah, I don't know that they taste the milk.
It's very educational. It's very educational. So I think this is a great idea.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Okay.
I'll send the invite to the board when that happens.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? That's a motion on the cow.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and make the motion since I brought it up on action item 7.07, the 2021-2022 agreement with Mobile Dairy Classroom for Captain Jason M. Dahl Elementary to provide services at Captain Jason M. Dahl Elementary School.
And I'll milk the second.
Item 7.07 has been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We'll go on to item 8, communications from the superintendent. Superintendent Cruz.
Yes, thank you. I'll keep it brief, noting the time. Just want to report that we had our first DEEV meeting of the year, and I will be bringing to the board additional names of parents and students for the board to consider appointing to the DEEV committee. We have some vacancies, one as a result of Mormon Martinez transitioning to the board, but also some parents that their children are no longer in FMSD schools. So we want to make sure that we have the parent voice at the DEEV committee, but also the student voice. So I'm going to bring to the board a recommendation to increase the number of students this way, even if there's a student that is absent on any given meeting, that we have student representation of the committee. Also, we had 2 days of implicit bias training on the 12th and the 13th. Well received from our staff, primarily classified staff on those days that we had students out, but we did have some certificated staff that came on either one of those days and participated. Again, I'm receiving great feedback from those that participated in terms of the value that they felt that day's training provided. I also had the opportunity to speak to a San Jose State leadership class on Saturday. I was invited by a former student and a current FMSD employee. She is the secretary over at Kennedy, and so she is at State furthering her education. So it was great to be able to go back to San Jose State virtually and speak to the class of future educators. And then I just looking forward to tomorrow. We're launching the College in My Future initiative. And I was able to have 2 interviews today in preparation to tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get some press out there to really get the excitement across our community about the college savings account program. We are sending out the opt-out forms for families because, there might be some families that they want to opt out. And so I invite everybody to Meadows at 10:30 tomorrow to technically, to kick off the College of My Future initiative with the first graders over at Meadows Elementary. That is it.
Thank you for that report, Superintendent Cruz. We will now go on to item 9, communications from the Board of Education, starting with item 9.01, board member reports, and we'll start with Board Member Sanchez.
Okay, couple of things. I was contacted by California School Boards Association President Susan Heredia if I would recite the Pledge of Allegiance at the Delegate Assembly in December. So I said, yes, of course. And so I will be doing that. So that's being quite an honor to lead the group there. And they did ask me if I had served in the military, which I have served. I don't know if any of you know, but I served in the United States Army. So I have given service to this country in that matter. And then I also went to the Beautiful Day project at Bridges Academy. And they were doing 4 projects that day. Beautiful Day is an organization of volunteers that comes out and spruces up a school and beautifies it. And so anyway, so I did help carry some boards to the backstop over the softball backstop. So I got to go back and see how it finished up, how it ended up. Anyway, but that was a day that I really enjoyed being there that morning. Also, I have been working for 2 straight months, which I didn't think I would be. But hopefully Monday I will be free again. I've retired again, I should say. But it's been all good. And I did get a booster shot and a flu shot on 2 different arms. I mean, not the same one at Kaiser. So I think I'm even better protected now. So anyway, so thank you all.
Thank you, Board Member Sanchez. Clerk Rodriguez.
Yes, I'll just keep making it quick. I also attended the Bridges School Beautiful Day event. Went very well. And then I also attended the ribbon cutting for the Family Resource Center at Chiricahua.
Thank you, Clerk Rodriguez. Board Member Martinez.
Thank you. I too attended the Beautiful Day at Bridges. That was awesome. It was nice to see all the volunteers giving, and helping out our community. And I also attended the FRC grand opening. That was awesome. Many thanks to Councilmember Maya Esparza, First 5, Catholic Charities, and to Superintendent Cruz and staff for making that happen. That's going to be an important piece to what is going to ultimately be an even bigger menu of services that we offer here at the district.
Thank you, Board Member Martinez. Vice President Tran.
No report.
Thank you. For my report, I also attended the Bridges Beautiful Day project. It was great. It was actually really exciting because the students were going to come back on Monday. So this was like during the break. And so definitely a great project that we're able to host at that site. And also really successful, attended the grand opening for the Chiricahua Family Resource Center. And again, it just was really great to see all the partners and all the collaboration and partnership and our district staff leadership that really, worked really hard to make that happen. I also attended the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Committee. So it's nice to be getting started with that this school year again. And there's certainly a lot of work that we're digging through with our priorities and figuring out the role in terms of how to look at things and gather input from an equity standpoint as well. And finally, I do want to thank Planned Parenthood for their collaboration on the reproductive healthcare access resolution and my colleagues also who supported that resolution today. Okay, we will go to item 9.02, agenda item requests. So we do have a number of items that are listed. At least some of these have perhaps been shared. Are there any additional agenda item requests at this time? None. We will
So,
go.
Board President, I'll make sure that we put some dates to some of these. I realized that, I didn't realize we didn't have dates to some of them.
Yes, I believe the independent studies was actually presented at the last meeting, so that one we won't need to cover. Okay, we will go to item 10, future business. There is no future business at this time. We will go to item 11, future meeting dates. 11.01 is our November 9th board meeting at 8 p.m. We will also have a parent meeting prior to that at Stonegate School, hopefully at 6:30 p.m. And then we have item 11.02 is our December meeting, December 14th at 7 p.m. Following that is 11.03, our January 11th, 2022, already be the next year, board meeting, and that will be at 7 p.m. Item 12, closed session. We are not returning to closed session at this time, so we're at item 13, adjournment, and I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Right, the motion has been made to adjourn and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes.